Hi, my name's Jess and I own the company Betty's Bikes. Alex recently got in touch with me as he was interested in what I do and what I have. So he's come along and I'm going to show you around. So I started Betty's Bikes because of my father. My father was a collector of motorbikes and cars. It started out as a hobby. And then it was actually my mum that said to him, as you love cars and motorbikes so much, why don't you turn it into a business? So he started his first motorbike shop, which was a touch of classic many years ago. My life with my dad as a child very much evolved around visiting auto jumbles and going to look at cars and motorbikes. So that's my mum and my dad and me as a little girl. This was me and my dad at an auto jumble on a motorbike, and these were days out with my dad where we'd go and look at motorbikes and cars. He had motorbikes anywhere and everywhere he could fit them. So this was the first motorbike shop, which started out in Croydon in Tamworth Road, called A Touch of Classic. And then he bought a livery stables when I was 4 years old, and he decided to have a motorbike auction at the livery stables. Then he went back to doing nightclubs for a little while, and then after he got tired of doing nightclubs, he opened up Planet Motorcycles, again at Tamworth Road in Croydon, because he owned this shop. So this was my dad in the office, and then some of the pictures from the bikes. And then he moved the business to Brighton Road because it was a much bigger premises. I left school when I was 15 years old because I was a little rebel child, and I started working in my dad's motorbike shop. And then we got approached by a film company that were looking for a motorbike. The first job that I ever did, I was 17 years old. I did for Rimmel with Kate Moss, and I was actually learning to drive at the time, and I drove my dad's pickup truck to Acton, having a driving lesson with my dad. And all my dad kept saying the whole way was, watch the bike on the back of the truck, watch the bike. But it opened up my eyes to what you could do with motorbikes. And I watched it all being filmed, even down to the special effects they did. So that was interesting, and that's where it started. I then started researching into what you would actually call them, and understood it was motorbike props, and started to advertise it as that. The company is called Betty's Bikes after my dad's Jack Russell, Betty, which is why there's a dog on the logo, but everyone thinks I'm called Betty. And these are some of the other jobs that I've done with the motorbikes over the years. And I will show you some of the bikes as we move around the shed as well. So Belstaff, Bolzoni and Walsh, Ralph Lauren. Then I did a couple for Radio Times magazine, for the Great British Bake Off, and also Jamie Oliver. I did one for Giorgio Armani with Kate Blanchett. David Beckham, we did one for his fragrance. JJ Field for Esquire magazine. Clark's. And then we did the Mad Max premiere in Waterloo. I did this alongside Stockyard Props, and we got a lot of the props from them. And we set dressed the bike. So this bike here was how it started. And then this is what we had it look like to go to the premiere. These are my children. So that's my son, my little girl, and that's my eldest. So it's very much a family-run business. Obviously, the inspiration for the business all comes from my dad. And I think when my dad died, it made me want to do it even more because it continued on his legacy. And then now, for me, it's doing it for my dad, because my dad was my superhero. And I feel like I never got to spend as many years with him as what I would have liked to. So it's continuing on his passion and what he loved and making use of it, and also setting footprints for my children to follow him. Yeah, so this was my dad, but he was actually so my dad died from a form of Parkinson's called progressive supranuclear palsy, and that's my eldest in that picture with him, but this was the early stages of when he first became ill, which you can see he's not 100%. So Stockyard Props, they're based in Acton. Andrew has got a collection of motorbikes, so we've collaborated together. He has got all of the pre-war motorbikes, as well as some others, so now we work alongside each other with certain jobs. So when I was 15, my Dad had a fire and we lost a lot of his whole collection of motorbikes and cars. We had 6 fire engines for 3 days putting the fire out. These are some photos of the remains of the fire. Everything was destroyed. The aluminium actually melted in the fire, and it was one of the biggest motorcycle fires in history, other than the one I think that happened at the motorbike museum. And I think after this happened, it was absolutely soul destroying to my dad. And then he decided to try and rebuild the collection and did so through his motorbike shop. And this is what is left now. So this is a Triumph Bonneville Tangerine Dream sidecar outfit, which is one of our more popular hires. It's been used by Mary Berry and Paul Hollywood for the Great British Bake Off, and it's also been used in the Voltro advert. This is a Triumph TR6. This was used for Bell staff. We've got an MV Augusta F4, which was put in a crate, and then the front of the crate was blown off for an eBay advert for Christmas.
That's a very rare MV.
This is a very rare MV. This has never actually been ridden or raced. It's only ever been out on exhibition. This was one of the first MV Augusta F4s off the production line, and again, has never been ridden, and it's never been registered. And then these are just a few more bikes from the collection. This was ridden by Ewan McGregor for Bell staff. So these pictures are just part of things that my dad and me have collected over the years. Just stuff we like the look of, really, and then kept of that we can use for set dressing and for props. So this is an Ariel Square 4. It's a 1952 frame, and it's got a 1932 engine in it. Then there's 2 gold stars in this shed. Yeah, there's another gold star, and there's a rocket gold star at the stables, which we'll visit. This matchless, again, people always find quite interesting. This here is my little retro corner. So I love this little motorbike. I love little things that are a bit quirky. This is a 1920s pedal car. And then you've got what I now call a retro traffic bollard, which I actually brought home on a drunken night out one night when I was 17, and I've had it ever since. Yeah, these are just badges and bits and pieces that I've collected, and my dad's collected, that I just like the look of. A lot of the time it is just what I like the look of. Then we've got another Ariel Square 4. This is a BSA Bantam. This bike's probably one of our most hired out bikes. It actually went to Amsterdam for the Money Expo, it's called, which is what the registration is here. So they wanted Money 2020 on the front and back registrations, and I put LED lights in the headlights. They wanted it lit, and it hung above the bar. There is pictures of that up on the wall as well. This is one of my favourite bikes, just because I think it's pretty. This is a Triumph TR5. I've got another Ariel Square 4, Velocet Venom, BSA A10. This is one of my favourite bikes as well, again, just because I like the look of it. And then this Norton Dominator has been used a couple of times. The most recent hire was for the Black Bag movie at Pinewood Studios, and it was used for Swarovski as well for their Valentine's advert a few years ago. So my dad bought this off eBay quite a few years ago. We didn't really know what it was, but we later found out that it actually used to pull canal boats along the river, which is why it's quite narrow. We've never had it running. It's more just for decoration, but I like it, so I've kept it. So I will just show you in this shed here. This is a lot emptier than what it was because I've got planning to build commercial units here, so we've had to sort all of this out. I've had the guys from Ritual Motorcycles help me to sell everything and manage all the sales, and we've sold a lot in 6 months. So these bikes are currently on eBay and up for sale. This is an Ariel Arrow. I've got another Ariel Arrow Sports up the garden. So welcome to the big shed, as I call it. This bike's quite interesting. This was left from my dad's shop. So this is a Honda CBX, but it's actually got twin NOS on the back of it. Again, it's been used quite a few times for photo shoots, and people like it because it actually looks like 2 different bikes. It's this colour on this side, completely different colour.
Does it run? On
the other side. It's not running at the moment, no.
And a NOS is nitro, isn't it?
Yeah. This is my little baby that I love riding around the garden. So this is the most fun bike here. It's my KTM 85. Then we've got a few other bikes. So most of the bikes in here are being sold, not all of them. This is a Fiat Spider. This is a Californian import.
Your dad was a prolific collector, wasn't
Yeah, he imported as well, so it wasn't just from this country.
Yeah.
Then under here, so this car my dad gave me when I was 14 because I've always liked Volkswagen Beetles. This is a 1966 Volkswagen Beetle, and it's the 1.6 version. I actually drove this as my first car when I passed my driving licence, which was quite an experience, if I'm honest, because I hadn't driven a classic car before, and it's very different.
And the 1.6, I only know because you told me, is the one to have, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's the higher engine. A lot of them are only 1.4. And then as we move on up here, my dad did pretty much every single auto jumble there was to do. Like I said, a lot of the parts, the engines and bits and pieces, believe it or not, have all been sold. But there's still quite a lot to sort out. So he was just a collector of anything and everything to do with motorbikes.
And what year was the fire?
So the fire was when I was 15, so it was 23 years ago.
And so everything we see here would have been collected after the fire. So this is from when he started again. Yeah,
so everything here was collected after the fire. So I was 15 when the fire happened, and then I was 23 when my dad first started becoming ill. So he collected most of that in between, from when I was 15 to when I was 23.
Wow.
And then he died when I was 29. But he spent the last year and a half in a nursing home because he was really bad.
Yeah.
They couldn't diagnose what he had first of all, so he actually got diagnosed when I was 26 years old with progressive supranuclear palsy, which is a form of Parkinson's, but they can't actually do a lot to help it, and it's a deterioration disease. But he was still there in his mind, so it was hard.
Was he collecting after he was... When did he stop collecting?
So when he wasn't well, he was still collecting. He used to wake me up because he got to a point that he didn't have a driving licence anymore. So when he didn't have a driving licence anymore, he used to wake me up at 5 a.m. and say, Jess, we've got to go and pick this bike up from wherever it was. So then I'd end up driving to go and pick bikes up. He was always on eBay. Every Sunday he'd get up and go to auto jumbles or boot sales. And yeah, he just liked buying and selling stuff. Well, he said he liked buying and selling stuff. He definitely liked buying more than he liked selling. So, and then when he got ill, I remember coming in here with him, and he used to say to me, Jess, I don't know what you're going to do with it all. And I'll be honest, I haven't really known what to do with it all. I did start selling stuff on my own, but I've got 3 young children, and it was just proving impossible. And then, like I said, I got in touch with the guys from Ritual Motorcycles, and then Brian has helped me with absolutely everything. I don't think he knew what he got himself into when I met him. But yeah, they've been fantastic, and we're slowly working through it. And then the plan is, this has got planning for 8 units. Going to keep one of the units to do the bikes, and then I want to set up my own photographic studio and have its location. So it's all a work in progress. There's just not enough hours in the day, but I'm determined to get there with it. So this is what I call the back sheds. And the bikes that are in here now have been moved out of the big shed because the big shed will be what's pulled down first. These are also all bikes that I would like to keep. This is Honda. This has recently been used by Westminster Law School, which they had on hire. That Kawasaki there is quite interesting. So that is a 10-speed Kawasaki. So that police bike, I think, was imported from Saudi Arabia. Again, my dad just liked anything that was a bit different and unusual. I like this little Cincinnati at the back there. So that's a little Italian bike.
The yellow one?
Yeah. And again, this little Honda I just like because I think it's quite cute. This was used for a promotional video for Adidas with 2 of the Arsenal players. I am quite a fan of... I like this little Gorelli and the Honda Naughty Dax. This was one of my first motorbikes that my dad got me, which was a promo bike for Snap-on. And behind it, there's a mini moto. It's actually a mini moto Harley Davidson. Again, it's a little bit unusual. So anything that's a little bit unusual and quirky. So these are other bikes that I want to keep. This was used for Giorgio Armani. Kate Blanchett sat on this motorbike, although on the day I had absolutely no idea who she was. And asked her how her day was going and if she'd like a tea or coffee. This was a CBS runner bike for CBS Records.
What's CBS?
It's a record company.
Okay, of course.
So this was the runners used to use it if they needed to go and get stuff. So it was a used for the runners when they used to go and get stuff for the record label. This is an aerial arrow sport, so this is the sports version. That was just a standard aerial arrow that was down there.
Yeah.
This is a BSA Bantam. This was at the Mad Max Furiosa premiere. They liked it because it's got that rusty look. I love it because it's got that rusty look. I actually went to Kempton to pick this up when my dad wasn't very well and met some random guy that he sent me to go and meet and picked it up in a van. This little Cub 90 was actually used for a British Airways advert as well. And then this Vespa, I just think it's pretty. Bit of a pattern with me thinking bikes are pretty and just not wanting to part with them. So this is a Jaguar XK140 restoration project, which was actually at a garage. When my dad became ill, I said, you need to get everything back because if not, it's going to go missing. We did have some stuff go missing because he didn't get it back. And then we've scavenged all these parts because they weren't all with it. So this is all part of it. And I probably will sell this because I don't think I've got the time or the knowledge to restore it, but I do think it is a beautiful car. And then we'll move up this way. So yeah, my dad was a bit of a collector of everything, but cars and bikes were his main thing. So this is an original Mini Cooper S with the twin petrol tanks. I would like to get this restored and built because I quite like the little cars. And I think a lot of the parts for it are in the car. I think the seats for it are over there somewhere. I always say what my dad's left me is like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces missing and no picture. Nothing was quite organised or in the place that it should be. So here are some bikes that we have left from the fire and a restoration project. This is a Honda GL 500. This is actually a 1954 Panther 600. And then there's a bonnet. There's another, I'm not sure what that is, but you can see how hot the fire was because the aluminium has melted.
Good to go. We're rolling.
Said I'd be hopeless. Right, we're ready, yeah?
Yep.
So my dad, before opening up a motorbike shop, was in the jeans business and then he was in the restaurant business. He opened up a fish restaurant at 34 Surrey Street and he imported this shark from America and was going to put it in the fish restaurant. However, it actually never made it to the fish restaurant and sat in a crate at the stables for many years. And then I bought it home and turned it into a water fountain.
Tell me what you just told me about your dad.
So my dad was born in Wales and he grew up in Wales. He then moved to Nottingham. And then when he was 19, he decided to move to London. He drove down in a Morris 1000 and he slept in the back of his car because he only had enough money to put petrol in his car. And then he bought and sold things and he built everything up from nothing.
This is Nicki. This is Jess's mum. She's just going to say a little bit about the man and about his personality. So tell us.
Hi, so how can I sum up David? He was eccentric. He was obsessed with buying old vehicles, old bike parts, motorcycles, anything old, vintage. He was an avid collector. He collected too much, basically. He was a very busy person. He never stopped. I don't really know what else I can say about him.
So would you say it's a mental illness?
Well, I think
quite,
it's a mental illness, yeah.
Quite
it's
possibly, yeah.
So yeah, I'd say it is a mental illness. I'd say it is an obsession. I also say you've either got oil in your blood or you haven't. And my dad's definitely passed the oil down to me. But the funny thing is about my dad is he collected all this stuff. And then when he really became ill, he said something to me which stuck with me, which was like, in the end, you end up becoming a prisoner of all your possessions. Because I think he collected all this stuff and then didn't know what to do with it. But I think it definitely was an illness. I think people do have this hoarding illness and then, you know, what are you really going to do with it all? And I think it gets to the point where, so what I want to do with it now is have it that you can appreciate it. I feel like my dad collected so much, you couldn't actually see or take in what was there. So my thing with it now is to have it that you can appreciate what is there and have it on display and make use of it rather than just having sheds full of stuff.
That's really fascinating about, you know, your possessions owning you, because they really do, don't they? And how do you feel about being in control of all this now?
I have my up days and I have my down days, to say the least. Some days I feel like I can take it all on. Other days I find it hard. I think I found it really hard because I've got a lot of sentimental and emotional attachment to it, and I didn't buy it all. And letting go of what I've let go recently has been like letting go of my dad. But I know I've needed to do it to close that chapter and start my chapter in my life. And that's why I want to keep what I can out of it, to appreciate it. But I don't want to end up like my dad, hoarding everything, because I feel that it was an absolute nightmare. And also the maintenance of trying to keep on top of it all was too much.
So if he saw you letting everything go, what do you think he'd think?
So strangely enough, when he became ill, he used to say to me, Jess, just get rid of it all. Just get rid of it all. He's like, I don't know where you're going to start. I don't know what you're going to do with it. So I think that's why doing what I've done with the bikes, you know, now I feel like they've got a use, they've got a purpose, and it's just keeping the ones that have got that use and purpose. That's why I've sold all the parts, because I haven't got a use or purpose for them, and I think it just clutters your mind. I do feel like I've taken on quite a lot of stress with what I'm doing with the planning and development. I've got the planning on 2 sites now. Now I've got to build it, but I do like a challenge. And I think I am like my dad, because I do thrive a little bit off the stress, and I think it'll be worth it in the long run. But I quite like being quite creative. So I think once the units are done, like, that's closing the chapter of my dad's life and starting the chapter of my life. And I've got all sorts of ideas of what I'd like to do moving forward with that. But Betty's bikes, you know, is sort of carrying on my dad's legacy and making a good use out of what has been left here. But I don't want to keep stuff for the sake of keeping it.
Tell me what your mum just said about your dad's mum.
So my dad's mum, she was Welsh, and she was a collector of knickknacks, and her house had a lot of knickknacks, not cars or anything, just general ornaments, figures, just little bits and pieces, very cluttered shelves.
So it's sort of in the blood.
Yeah, so it's definitely hereditary.
So it's
I'm hoping
there we go.
I'm hoping it's not that hereditary, but I do have a bit of a feeling that I have definitely got it in me. But I like things to be a little bit more organised and not too cluttered. I think that's my thing. I like things to be busy, and I do like collecting stuff, but I like to be able to appreciate it. And I feel that way my dad had a lot of stuff, you couldn't appreciate it. The same as his mum, you couldn't appreciate it. It was almost too cluttered. But yeah, I definitely think it runs in the family. And my eldest, who's actually got my dad's name, David Lynch, in his name, has definitely got it in him, because he won't get rid of anything. He's 11.
Interesting to see the signs, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where are we now?
So this is what my dad called the games room, which originally was meant to be for entertaining, hence why we've got a full-size snooker table, even though me and my dad didn't play snooker. We've got a pinball machine over there, which I love. I love retro stuff. I really do like old stuff. It's definitely from my dad. I used to play on that as a little girl. This was the bar. Again, there's just bits and pieces he's collected over the years.
Car in here.
And then, yeah, any place he could put a car or a motorbike. So this is a Triumph TR3, which I will keep as well. I do love this car. I just think it's cute. So this is the final shed here. And there's just a few bikes in here, really, for space. So we've got the 2 Triumph Thunderbirds. This is quite unique. I'm not sure all the technical details of it, but my dad actually put this together and took me out on the back of it before it had the back bit on, pulled out too fast out the driveway, and I nearly went flying off the back of it. But that was my dad through and through. He never really worried about the safety aspect of things. Yeah, he liked collecting things that were different. So, you know, auto jumbles, auctions, anywhere he'd pick stuff up like this. This one's also made out of wicker.
Didn't even see that.
Again, it's quite unusual. And then I think this is the earliest bike that I've got, which is a 1947 matchless. And then we've got the little noddy car up there. You know, I like stuff like that. It's just quite cute and quite cool. So yeah, these are just knickknacks that my dad or me have collected, and then I just think they look nice. So this is the barn at the stables, which I've actually got planning to turn into a house, but I've used it for storage in the meantime. So we have some more motorbikes down here. So we'll start with the Triumph Grand Prix. This has been used a couple of times, once by David Beckham, who actually asked if he could buy it, and I didn't want to sell it, and also for fashion companies. So in here, we've got more of the collection. We've got this matchless here, which I've always found people find quite interesting, quite fascinating. Again, I like it. I think it's quite a sexy looking bike and it's quite unusual. This is a 1960 Triumph Bonneville. This is my favourite Bonneville out of the Bonnevilles. And this was the one that JJ Field sat on for Esquire magazine.
Oh, you've got a dragonfly here.
Yeah, so this is a Douglas Dragonfly. Again, I've kept it just because I think it's a bit different. You don't see them all the time.
No.
Then we've got a Triumph Speed Twin here. We've got a Norton next to it. And then next to that, that is a T120R American import, which is there. And then in the back corner here, this is the Ariel, which is from the Rimmel London shoot, which was the first job that I ever went on for doing the props with the motorbikes. We've got an Ariel Leader. This is a Honda CB92, which my dad actually bought and fully restored. We've got a little collection of scooters, which I actually swapped for a old Suzuki RE5. I did a part exchange just to add to the collection for Betty's bikes, just to add to the variation. This is a Ferrari 400i, which is not one of the most desirable Ferraris. I used to call it a Rari when I was a little girl, and my dad used to pick me up from school in it. I do love this car, and I've actually driven this a few times. So this is a 1973 Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible, and I went to my first school disco in this when I was 14 years old. My dad took me and my friends in it. So this is a 1937 Chevrolet, and I like this car because I think it's got a bit of a gangster look about it. Like you can imagine people driving around in this in the 1930s. It's just a bit different. And then this car, so this is a 1938 Sunbeam Talbot, and I call this the Cruella de Vil car because I think it looks like Cruella de Vil's car out of 101 Dalmatians. It does need restoring and needs some work doing to it, but I don't think I'll sell this. I'm not very good at selling stuff. There's a bit of a pattern here. There's a bit of a genetic thing going on, I think, with my father. So behind here, I'm not sure what motorbike this is, but basically this has been attached to a wooden platform. I don't know if you can see it. And it's sort of used as a goods motorbike. So it's got almost like a trailer attached to it on the back of it. Again, I think my dad just bought it because it was unusual and also probably with the idea of using it for the stables. However, I don't think he ever did. So my dad got a livery stables in part exchange for a restaurant when I was 4 years old. And then I started horse riding when I was 4 years old as well. So horses are another thing of mine, but that came from my mum. And then he had this barn, and it was an indoor school, but it's too small for that really. So my dad filled it up with cars and motorbikes. And he did have an enforcement order from the council on it and was told he had to move everything. I don't know if I should be saying this, but what he did was he bought a load of hay bales and stacked them as tall as the door and hid all the cars and motorbikes behind the hay bales. So when you open the door, it just looked like a barn full of hay. But obviously that was years ago. And since then, I have actually now got planning to convert this into a 5-bedroom house. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is a Mercedes 22 SE, which is quite unusual. I think it's quite a collector's car as well. I am in two minds. I might eventually sell this car because I can't keep everything. I think the thing is with cars, they do take up a lot of space and they do take more time and restoration, whereas the bikes you can store easier. And my business, I just want to do motorbikes. So this is an old Kubota tractor. This is actually the first vehicle that I ever drove when I was 8 years old. My dad left me harrowing the sand school, much to my mum's dismay when he went and told her that I was down there harrowing the sand school on my own. I think my mum was worried I was going to drive it through the wall, but I never did. And I used to love driving this, actually. So now we're standing up on the viewing platform. My dad actually built this, I think, as just a mezzanine floor, again, because he ran out of space to store everything that he wanted to buy. So by putting in an extra floor, it opened up more storage for him. So this is the end of the Betty's Bikes tour, but we're going to do a part 2 with Andrew and Perry from Stockyard Props, so you can get to see some of the vehicles that they've got over there and also some of the props that feature in some of the things that we've done. But we've reached the end of the Betty's Bikes tour now, so thank you very much, Alex, for coming down, and I hope you've enjoyed having a look around everything and learning a little bit about what I do and why I do it and about my inspiration behind doing it.